Okay, it's the end of the session. I'm here with Hope and Harper, Holly and Harper, and this is their roadmap to success. Now, from what I'm seeing is basically not an issue of aggression. Harper has attacked Holly a couple of times and sent Holly to the vet. Now, when this has happened, it seemed to come with no warning, according to the Guardian. Harper, sit, sit. So make sure you pet under the chin like this and say just the word sit. So I said it during the command stage and then it's during the reward stage. Now basically the dogs are completely separated now. They have two kennels back there and they're side by side. So one dog's out and the other dog is not out. One's secured, one's not. And so the Guardian, when she just went to go pick up the kids at school and we're about 3/4 of the way through the session. So I said, I'm gonna take the dogs on a walk together. And she's like, but this dog will attack that dog. I think what's going on here is actually a jealousy issue. The dogs really don't have any rules. Holly, come here. Sit. Now, I'm not being flagrant or flippant about the dogs. I know that they have gotten into fights in the past. Wow, Mom is already home. So Mom's going to come through and you're going to hear a little bit barking here in a second. Hey, your mom just showed up. Okay. Maybe she's dropping one of the kids off and coming back for the other one. But basically, the dogs really don't have a lot of rules, which can very easily cause the dogs to be confused and thinking they have the same authority as the humans. And if the dogs think they have the same authority as the humans, then listening to the humans becomes optional. So I think what's going on here is the dogs are used to jumping up and competing for attention. Hey, buddy. We're shooting a video. And these dogs get really worked up and they get a lot of attention from the kids and really anybody in the house. Anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're specifically reinforcing or rewarding. So I pet, no, and we're not going to say anything. So this is a great example. Now, what we intend to say is quiet and shush, but to the dogs, I'm getting attention when I whine. I get attention when I bark, even if it's being corrected or chastised or yelled at. As far as if you yell at a dog that's barking, the dog that just thinks, cool, now we're both barking. So if your dog barks or whines for attention, even if you give it a correction, that's going to cause it, and we don't want to do that, buddy. Sorry, I'm going to be a buzzkill. One of the kids wants to play with Harper a little bit, but when the dogs are overexcited, we don't want to pet them. Anything our dog's doing when we pet it is what we're specifically rewarding. So if the dogs are excited when we come home and we pet that dog, we're going to make that dog slightly more excited every time we do that. The dogs have been together for over 3 years. So that's probably, I always tell people it's like maybe 1/5 of a percentage point each time you do it. So 1/5 of a percentage point, no big deal. But if you do that, you do that 5 times a day, well, now that's a whole percentage point. That day, the dog's more excited. At the end of a year, that can very easily go to a couple. Now, I've got a tether essentially set up here. And that was actually good interaction. We like that. Yes, that's good interactions. We like the good interactions. But I want to use tools to make sure everything stays safe. So she's tethered to the couch with 2 leashes that are bound together. And I've got Holly here on a leash as well to make sure that things are going to stay safe for both dogs. Really more for Holly than for Harper because Harper's a lot bigger. Harper also has some dog aggression issues. I'm sure that has compounded into it. But basically, these dogs are so used to jumping up or nudging or barking at their humans and either getting corrective attention or petting attention. In either way, we're training the dogs to do the wrong things. If the dog, the Guardian said she didn't have a problem with Harper jumping up on her. Problem is, if Harper jumps up on her, then Harper can jump up on anyone. And in Harper's mind, sit down. Then that's the proper way to get attention is by jumping up on people. Now, one of the problems with this is when we come home through a door or somebody comes into our house and the person jumps up, dog jumps up on the person, that's the way the dog either says, you belong to me now, or I'm letting you know that I'm in charge around here. And either one of those things are going to be confusing and cause problems with the dogs. I think both these dogs think they're in charge. And when one dog is jumping up and acting inappropriate with the human, the other dog, that's one that's sequestered, is protesting about it. When I first came in, Holly was doing a lot of protesting when Harper was jumping up on me and doing a lot of inappropriate things. Now, I don't have a problem with the dog jumping up on me, but Harper's a big dog. She jumps up on the wrong person. The person doesn't realize that she's just saying it kind of to be friendly, but also to claim. And they think the dog's attacking them. That can escalate into a really bad situation really quickly. So we want to teach the dogs to be calm and balanced. If we pet a dog, like I said, when we come home and the dogs are excited, we're going to make them more excited. So instead, when the humans come home, I want all of the humans to ignore the dog that's loose. Don't look at it. Don't pet it, certainly. Don't correct it. Don't give him a dirty look. Just walk in as if the dog's not even there, invisible. And as soon as the dog, and you're going to wait for the dog's energy level to come down. When it does, you're going to reach for the dog. As soon as you reach for the dog, you're going to see the dog wiggling and try to get up. Don't say no. Just simply pull your arm back and continue going whatever you were doing before. So what we're saying through the dogs is when you're calm and balanced, you're very attractive to us. We want to pet you and give you attention. When you are out of balance and you're overexcited, overstimulated, whatever it is, I lose all interest in hanging out with you. And so we're doing a little video. So basically, the more... That's all right, that's all right. It's okay. But this is an example. We just had mom who just got back with a couple of the kids, and you can see the dogs are whining and want that attention. If we pet the dogs in this state of mind, this is what we are reinforcing. So that's going to make it worse. Now, and so you saw that turn right there. That was Harper's way of saying, hey, you're out of balance, knock it off. She does the same thing. So you have two dogs, neither one of them should be in charge. They both think they're in charge, and that's contributing to the problem. So I'm just going to ignore both of them, buddy. So as soon as the dog calms down, then you reach for the dog again. As soon as they start wiggling, you pull your arm back. You're not saying no. We're just saying no through our actions. And as soon as you can get all the way to the dog and pet the dog, then you can pet the dog in this sort of calm and balanced behavior. Now, one of the things I went over with the Guardians was something I call petting with a purpose. And I'll show you here. Sit, sit, come. Actually, this is petting with a purpose and passive training. Passive training here, petting with a purpose here. So if the dog comes up and nudges me, or paws at me, or barks at me for attention, and I give the dog attention, whether it's a correct or a reward, I'm validating the dog what the dog wants. Harper, come here, buddy. This looks better when you're both on camera. They're here. And so for petting with a purpose, what we do, and again, if I correct this, I'm going to make this worse. I actually have a terrier at home, and he does a similar behavior. When they get really anxious, they make this kind of whiny sort of sound that Holly's doing right now. So basically what we do is just teach the dogs to be calm and balanced, and that's the best way to get our attention. I appreciate it, buddy, just ignore. And he's trying to help me. He's trying to port for Harper to come back here, but then again, that also is validating to Harper. So what we want to do is just ignore them completely. And as soon as they're calm, that's when we actually start making the petting. And eventually the dog will learn to be more and more relaxed, because that's the only way that I get attention from the humans. Now, if I'm in the middle of petting a dog and it starts barking, I'm going to stop petting. Stopping providing attention is a very powerful way of communicating that I don't like something. It's actually called a negative punishment. Negative punishment means to deduct something from the equation. In this case, my presence. So let's say I'm in the room and Holly starts barking at me. After the third bark, I would get up and leave the room. I don't say a word to Holly, but if she's barking at me for attention, which she does, we call it demand barking. If I give her that correction, that's rewarding. But she's trying to get my attention. So if the barking, instead of not only doesn't get my attention or a correction anymore, it causes the human to leave, well, shoot, that's the exact opposite of what I'm trying to accomplish. So now that's going to teach the dog that barking is getting the opposite of what I want, but petting with a purpose and passive training will both entice or reward and motivate the dog to do the things that we want. So if I want to sit, she just sat on her own. That's passive training. I'm going to talk in a minute. So let's say that Harper here is pining. Harper, I'm going to ask Harper to sit, and then pet her under her chin and say the word sit and nothing else. And now I can pet her for 9 hours or however as long as I want. I asked her to do something first to earn it. This helps her see that she can't tell the humans what to do anymore. She has to ask. And she has to ask by sitting, which is almost a way of saying please for dogs. And so she's like, not only can I not tell them anymore, I have to pay for my attention. I pay for it through a currency of obedience. After a while, what will happen is Harper's going to come start sitting in front of people to prepay for that attention. And when she does, make sure that you do pet her. Pet her under her chin whenever possible. Never pet her on top of the head. Proud dogs have a nose in the air. And so, especially when we're rewarding a dog for desired behavior, we want to pet them under the chin. So they have that nose up and they feel good about that behavior. Now, the more that this happens, like I said, the more the dog's going to feel like this sitting in front of a human is my way of asking for attention. They're going to prepay for it. Now, if somebody comes in the room and sees I'm petting Harper and Harper's standing, they're going to assume I forgot to pet with the purpose, and they say, paycheck. I would stop petting. I'd say, Harper, 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 sit. And then I would pet her for sitting. Now, she actually was more interested in the Guardians over there. That's okay. But normally, there's not going to be that distraction. She wants my attention. Harper, sit, sit. And then I can pet her as much as I want, and I tell the other person, look, I asked her to sit before you came in the room. When the door opened, she stood up, just like you saw her do, and I continued petting her, which is allowed. But we won't realize how often we pet without a purpose. So if someone says paycheck, we cannot argue at all. We immediately stop petting. You have 3 seconds to correct or reward your dog, and there is a huge difference between 1 second and 3 seconds. 1 second is much, much more powerful. So basically, paycheck is just our way of kind of helping each other out and remember that we need to pet with a purpose. Passive training, which is what I did over here, was Holly sat down on her own. I didn't influence, I didn't ask, I didn't entice. sit, down. And that's passive training as well. Passive training is just waiting for the dog to offer you a behavior that you want, and then rewarding them within that 3-second window and saying the command word and only the command word. Not good sit, just sit. Now, so we're basically doing the same thing in 2 different versions. One of them, petting with a purpose, is when the dog wants attention from me or I want to give the dog attention. I ask it to do something to prepay for it. Passive training is waiting for the dog to voluntarily offer you that behavior. One of the things the guardian says is the dogs don't come to her very well when they're outside, and she asks them to come inside. A lot of times the only time we call a dog in from outside is when it's doing something we don't like. It's barking, it's going to annoy the neighbor, so we ask the dog to come inside. And the dog's like, I was having fun, I listened to you, and when I listened to you and came inside, the fun was over. Next time I just won't listen to you. So we actually train our dogs not to listen to us. Passive training is a wonderful way to bypass that. So every time one of the dogs comes to you, pet the dog and say the word come. Actually, I recommend the guardians in this house change to the word here, because they've been saying come so often, probably has some negative baggage with it. So, excuse me, every time the dog comes to you on its own, pet it and say the word here. Every time the dog sits down next to you, pet it and say sit. Every time it lays down, pet it and say down. Every time it brings you a specific toy, name each individual toy. I taught my dog to grumble this way. I taught another one of my dogs to stretch this way. Every time it stretched, I pet it under its shin afterwards and say stretch. At that dog, I can say stretch, and he puts his butt in the air, waggles his tail, stands up, and he'll do it 10 times in a row on command. Teaching our dogs what we want them to do and reinforcing it through our actions is a very powerful way of conditioning dogs to do what we want. So someone just walks in the room, I want attention, and this gets me attention even if it's getting corrected. So this video, we've seen it several times when people come in. These dogs need to learn to develop some self-control. That's going to be monumentally important for all of the humans to be on the same page. Now, if she's whining like this, it would not be at all unusual, sit, for Harper to react to correct her because she's saying, hey, you're out of balance. That's what dogs do. They don't allow things to spiral and get really out of balance. They address it right away when the dog first steps out of line 1 step. At this point, the dogs are 150 steps out of the line. So it's going to take a lot longer to get them to go back. But the great thing about dogs, they live in the now. If everyone in the house pets with a purpose, the dogs are going to start to adopt that because now that's the only way to get the human's attention. And when I coincidentally sit, suddenly I'm getting attention for that too. And when I bark, either they don't even blink or look at me, or it causes them to leave the room. So these are 2 sides of this equation. One of them is telling the dog what they can do to get the attention. One of them is refraining or mitigating the thing that they do that we don't want. Now, we can also, the video above talks about counter conditioning. So every time we want to do that, we want to have somebody at the door, and I would do the doorbell or knocking each time without doing both of them at the same time. Now, if I go like this is something I do periodically when I have multiple dogs in the house, because the dog's just like, normally that means somebody's at the door. Well, if they hear the knock and no one gets up, well, now we can take away a little bit of that excitement energy because no one's actually coming through the door. And after a while, you'll see the dog will give you less and less of a response. And after a while, almost no response. Now we have Mom that just came in the door and came into sight, this time not freaking out. Now the distance is proximate, the proximity also amplifies things. If Mom were to walk over here, then the dogs would start whining. Go ahead and walk over here and we'll just get an example. That's perfect. That was 3 steps. And immediately the whining starts. You can do whatever you want to do. But basically, so these dogs, well, for a lot of us, we actually train our dogs to do the things we don't want. If it steals remote control, we get up and chase it. It barks, we correct it. Well, now we know through petting with purpose and passive training, we're going to be able to teach the dogs things to do that we want, that are more desirable, that is going to get them attention. Now, something else that I just got done doing is I took, and one of the videos above is of me walking these 2 dogs together. Now, I only shot a short segment of that, and then I took the dogs for a walk considerably longer than that. But they didn't go after each other at all, or Harper didn't go after Holly at all. There was no dust-ups, no problems. Now, they both pull like crazy on the leash. Normally, I only do 2 videos per session, but because these guys are watched by the world-famous Francis, who works for me, Taylor, I should say, I decided to do an extra bonus video. I'd like to see, if possible, for Taylor to actually take the dogs for a walk together, use the martingale with a special twist of the leash if she's watching this, so that she has better control of the dogs. But dogs get over things by literally moving forward. These dogs are they're separated all the time. So if Harper's in the kennel and sees that she's jumping up on the humans or doing something that Harper thinks is inappropriate, she's going to be protesting in there, and she's also going to be resentful of it. Well, we need to start building up some common experiences between the two of these. They both like walking. Man, she really liked to walk. And she was bounding around like a happy dog. So if we get in a habit of taking these dogs on a walk, and we might have to get to the point where mom walks with a martingale, and I'm going to show her how to use the martingale, and one of the kids walks her, she needs a martingale because she was pulling and choking herself a little bit. But now if we do that on a daily basis, just a walk around the block, doesn't have to be that long. Now the dogs have at least a little communal experience together. And that's going to help them feel a lot better because now it's instead of just animosity, I actually do something with that dog. Now, we also went over the importance of rules and enforcing rules consistently. I'll go run through them real quick. Not being allowed on the furniture, not being allowed on the carpet around the dining room table, and the first time the dog crossed that threshold, then it has to be on this carpet, not allowed to be on the hardwood. Not allowed to be in the kitchen when mom's preparing food. And if the kids are eating food here, the dogs need to have a 7-foot boundary around them here. We're going to make the dogs sit before we let them in or out of the door. If you go to the door and say sit, and they don't sit, within 3 seconds, I walk away, wait for 1 minute, then come back and tell them to sit a second time. If they sit that time, then I open the door. If they don't, I walk away for 2 minutes, next time for 4 minutes, then for 8 minutes. I'd also like Taylor to show the guardians how to let the dogs out of their kennels in a calm way. Right now, as soon as you open the door, they kind of explode out. We need these dogs to develop self-control, and we look for alternative ways of doing it rather than not attacking each other, but instead of having to wait for permission to eat food that's waiting in the bowl, or waiting for permission to go through the door of the kennel when it's wide open, permission to go out the door there with this also wide open. So the more we can help the dog practice a little delayed gratification and looking to the humans before I get permission to do that, the more they're going to respect the humans and see and identify themselves as being in a follower position. You can see they're nice and relaxed together. The guardian is over there. She's kind of nodding her head like with a surprised look on her face. The dogs need to practice being together. Now the walks is a great way to do it. After about a week or two of walks, I'd like to have them spend some time together in the room. Now what I've done is I take a leash that I ran around the leg of this couch over here and attach it to another chain. I use 4-foot leashes so that Harper has about 6-7 feet of space that she can be free. And then Holly, I'm guessing, is probably going to stay away from her. If Holly doesn't, then we might tether her on this side. We want them to be out together in the room, just not being able to reach each other. And so they're practicing being in the room together without any animosity and without trying to be aggressive towards each other. Now, I also went over structured feeding for the dogs. I like the dogs right now are eating once a day at night. And so during the day, they're probably a little bit hungry, and that can actually amplify things as well. So I'd like to basically tether Harper here. Where do you feed him at in here?
Laundry room.
In the laundry room. Okay, so we tether her, and then basically, or somebody could have her on the leash. And then basically I would like Holly to be fed first because she's a little bit the older dog and she's on the receiving end. Now when she goes over, she's a lazy eater. She goes and eats a little bit and then walks away and comes back a little bit later on. Well, what we're going to do now is we put food in her bowl. The human who's feeding is going to eat something in 5 or more bites first. Then invite Holly to go over. Maybe her word is sushi. When she takes her first bite of food for 2 months, we're going to say the word sushi just once during the first bite of food. When Harper hears the word sushi, there's no food in her mouth. It doesn't mean anything to her. When she hears the word sushi, there's food in her mouth. Sushi, I don't eat sushi. And so after a while, sushi becomes her command word to eat. And when she walks away from the bowl longer than 5 feet, 7 feet, we pick up the bowl, dump it empty, and put the empty bowl back down. It's important to put the empty bowl back down. She'll probably come and lick the empty bowl. Well, what happened? Well, when you leave the table, the food goes away, because that's what it would be like in the wild. And then after a while, she'll stop moving away from the food, and she'll start eating all of her food there. Now, if she moves away, no more snacks again, and she does not eat, unless she eats her full breakfast, they don't get dinner. Because right now they're conditioned to eat late at night, and it's not very healthy for them only to eat late at night. Dogs eat for fuel, so they need that food throughout the day. So once she gets done eating, then she has to leave the area. Then we invite Harper to come and eat. When Harper's eating, Holly's not allowed to be within 7 feet. Now, Harper, we got tethered. We might do that just to make sure everything stays safe. But again, we want to use the tools as we need to keep them safe, but also to help them practice and develop those good neural pathways of being together in a non-aggressive way. But eating is a very primarily important activity for dogs. If we just add a little dominion, that'll help the human that's feeding them appear as an authority figure. Harper sees that Holly eats before her, so she has a little bit more status. Harper has to control herself, and same thing with Holly. I prefer to do this without leashes, but right now I think the leashes are probably a smart thing for us to do just to make sure everything stays safe. Now, we might also want to condition Harper to use a muzzle, and later on when we are making a little bit further progress, so we know psychologically humans that Harper can't, even if she does go after her, we got enough time to go and pull her off, and she can't do any damage with her teeth. But the whole point of this is to set them up for success so they don't feel like the need to be aggressive. And again, I think a lot of it is based on thinking that they have the same authority as each other and with the humans. And they both need to see that they have less authority than even the smallest human in the house. Now, another factor, they're not young dogs, but they're not old dogs either. They're both in their prime. And they really don't get exercised a lot other than being outside. But one dog outside in the backyard by itself is not going to be very exciting. And they're bored. So, and also when dogs get bored, if I growl at the other dog, that gets a correction. Well, that's validating too. So I'd like the guardians to start an exercise journal. This is actually the first thing we talked about. So the exercise journal should include various ways that we exercise the dogs. Walking is actually not a very efficient way to exercise. It's good for leadership, and it's good for them to practice being together. Now, when they're together in the video, like I talked about above, nobody can be in front, nobody can be behind. We want a line, human, dog, dog, or human, human, and dogs on the outside. And then basically what we want to do is come up with creative ways to exercise them. One of the ways we can do that is using the stairs. We have 2 sets of stairs. So Harper likes chasing the laser. Now that can be something separate, or you can use the laser on the stairs, but usually what I do is I go to the top of the stairs with a handful of treats. I touch Holly's nose with the treat, and I throw it to the bottom of the stairs. Now Mom just came in the room, and this time Harper got up, and you see she's excited, but not the same amount. This is a wonderful thing about dogs, how quickly they adapt. Mom's not engaging or doing anything, so Harper was excited for a minute. Energy stayed calm. Energy stayed completely calm. So take that as a good lesson that you can change and modify their behavior, just so we put a little structure in place. So for the stairs, what I do is I call it an up-down. So basically I touch Holly's nose with a treat, I throw it to the bottom of the stairs. When Holly gets to the bottom of the stairs and licks it up, I would say maybe the word, you come up with a funny word. I was saying maybe Bloomingdale's goes to the bottom of the stairs, go to the top of the stairs is maybe Nordstrom's or whatever it is, if you want to use a shopping motif. Some people say lobby and penthouse, whatever you want. But we want to give the dog a command, so that way the dog knows that going to the bottom of the stairs means this word. So every time I go to the bottom of the stairs, I hear the word lobby. After I lick up the treat, then we call the dog back up, and then we give it another treat, and we say penthouse. And then throw it down again. I like the guardian to do that and throw it up and down with an empty stomach for both dogs, with the other dog separate. And so we can just see how many up downs we get from that dog before it just says, I'm not doing it anymore, I'm pooped. Now we know their maximum number. And then basically let's say it's 50, well then we can maybe get a third or a little bit less than half of that sprinkled throughout the day a couple times. We have 3 kids in the house. I would suggest that each one of the kids has to do an up down with each dog once or maybe twice, depending on the dog's energy level. Harper likes to play fetch. That's a wonderful way to burn exercise. And when you're doing these things, you want to count the number of up downs, count the number of fetches. If you're doing the laser, I would just do how many circuits around and come up with a circuit. Maybe stand here and have the laser go there, then over here around the table, and then back. So that's, you got to have a circuit. And then you count the number of times. I'd like the guardians to start an exercise journal, just a spiral notebook, write the day at the top, write Harper on one side and Holly on the other side, and make a column for each one of them, and put the times on the far left column. And then write, 6:30 a.m., took them for a walk, 20 minutes. 8:55, 10 up downs with Harper, or 20 up downs with Harper, 10 with Hope. Maybe 12:05, laser. Whatever it is. Put down also what time you feed them, and then if Holly ate her food or didn't eat her food. If there's any barking incidents, put that stuff in there as well. And at the end of the day, give each dog a letter grade, A through F. And then the next day, unless it was an A grade, play with the elements. Add a couple of repetitions to the fetch. Add an extra block to the walk. Add an extra whole game of up downs or a couple of repetitions, whatever it is. Keep playing around with the elements until the dogs give you an A behavior. Now you know what sort of exercise they need, and it doesn't have to be hours and hours of exercise. If you get each one of them little 3 to 5 minute exercise things sprinkled throughout the day, maybe 5 to 7 times throughout the day, that's probably less than an hour. And it's going to set them up for success by taking out that anxiety and helping them deplete that excess energy. Now, they also like to bark at people that are coming by the house. We want to try to remove temptation. So I recommend the guardian start a Roman blinds, which is basically we put paper on the bottom part of the window so the dog goes to the window, it can't see out. We want them to form new neural pathways. So if every time I go there, I look out and I can't see it, well, then I get out of a habit of doing that. But if the dog goes and sees somebody coming and barks at him, and then as the person walks away, the dog barks, and the person walks away, the dog thinks, I just successfully defended the house from an invasion. And every time that happens, the dog thinks that it did its job and did it more and more. Because these dogs don't have any rules, it's hard for them to see what they can do to contribute to the group. So the more that we ask them to sit, to earn our attention, pet, for me, it's just being obedient. Sitting when I ask you to sit. And sitting is a way of asking for it rather than telling me, pawing at me for attention. So you can have the dog in your lap and all those things, but it shouldn't be until at least a month of not doing it a single time to help them get out of the habit, and then that becomes a very special privilege or reward that they get only for good behavior. Okay, you're being really good, you've been good today, okay, I'll invite you on my lap. That's a special privilege, not a right. So put the paper in the bottom rung of that far window over there, and then just the bottom part on either side of the door. If they got to go in the office over here, you might put it in the bottom part of the office as well, so that when they look out, they're not seeing any temptation. Let me see. I usually go over my escalating consequence. I'm going to go over 2 of them here, just so that the guardians understand what they are. But I don't really like to focus on a lot of that. I like to focus more on the positive. So if I want to disagree with the dog, the very first thing I do is I make a hissing sound like a cat. I have 10 hisses. I have a level 1 hiss, which is like, and I have a level 10 hiss. And when you're watching this, watch the dog. I'm laughing. Harper didn't blink at all. But basically, when dogs, so many animals make a hissing sound as a warning. Cats, skunks, raccoons, otters, even bunny rabbits. So I hiss as my way of a warning. Don't even think about crossing the boundary to come in the kitchen or coming over here to the dinner table while we're eating. So basically, we can warn the dog by stopping before we do it. We don't want to use the word no because it's the 51st most commonly used word in the English language. So if we hiss, I hiss my way of saying no, don't do that, or most effectively, don't even think about doing that. And only hiss 1 time per incident. Second thing I do when I disagree, if the hiss worked and the dog came back a second time, is I abruptly stand up. When you stand up, you're burning energy, which is a way to dogs of saying, I'm really serious about this. Your authority goes whatever direction your hips are pointing. Right now, my authority is pointing directly at the camera. Now, if you stand up suddenly, the dog's going to take a step backwards, and then because you're in an action position, the dog's like, well, I better counter your move by taking a step back and give myself an extra step to move away. Then I'm going to qualify. Are you talking to me for sure, or did you just get stung by a bee, and that's why you got up so quick? So as a dog, I'm going to walk over here. So if I keep my hips pointed directly this way and the dog walks that way, the dog literally walked away from my authority. Sit. So what I'm going to do instead is as the dog gets up and moves around, I'm going to keep my feet planted, but I'm going to twist at my hips and keep that dog in front of me until the dog stops moving. When the dog stops moving in this equation, it's its way of saying, I stop challenging you. When the dog stops moving, you take 2 steps backwards. And when I say 2 steps, I mean only 2 steps, right, left, or left, right, and that's it, and pause for a second. I tell people to take 2 steps backwards, and they usually go right, left, 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 shift, 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 and then Wonder Woman at the end. That will tell the dog he's just meandering around. So I have just 2 crisp steps backwards and pause for 1 second. That's the equivalent of putting a period at the end of the sentence. So if the dog's doing something you don't like and you stand up suddenly, the dog's like, whoa, it just got really serious. So when the dog's coming over towards you, you know the dog's going to jump up and you hiss at it when it's a couple feet away. If it jumps up, then stand up right away. To tell the dog that's not what I want, but the best thing is to correct them before they get down. Now, one last thing, I didn't go over this with a guardian, but I like to give my dogs directional commands. I find it just much easier to make them move around. So if I want a dog to leave the room, actually leaving the room is actually a punishment. And so a lot of times they're underfoot, we're like, out, and the dog's like, wow, they're mad, now they're moving me away, I'm being punished. What I do instead is I teach the dogs to leave. So let's say there's a door right here, and I'm in the hallway, and this is the room. Or let's say this is the room, and that's the hallway. And I want Holly to go out. What I do is I just throw it right outside and say, out. And then when she comes back, I bring her back in the room, Holly, and throw it out again, out. So now I'm quantifying, I'm defining what out means. Out means leave the room and get rewarded for leaving the room. So what I would do is go around to each room in the house with a bunch of treats, maybe split the treats in half, throw it out, out, she comes back, throw a second one out, then go to the next doorway. And do it all the doors in the house, and then go the same, do the whole circuit again, but this time throwing from the hallway into the room. So you can say out in any room, the kitchen, outside the boundary, the dining room outside the boundary. So now when we tell the dog we want them to go out, they actually know what we want, and they've been motivated to want to do that. And after a while, when you say out and the dog goes out, if you have a treat, go over there and give the dog a treat, or just give it a pet and let it know, hey, I really appreciate you leaving when I asked you to do that. Let me see, what else? I'm going to show the guardian also a focus exercise, which is a great way to redirect the dog's attention. Practice that. The focus exercise, keep it 1 second for all 12 treats at first, then it's 1 second, eventually 15 seconds in the second movement. Now, when you're doing that second movement, you have to work your way up there. So at first, I may do all 12 treats like focus or focus. And for all 12 treats, 1 second, 1 second. Second time, second person does it, maybe goes 1 second, 2 seconds for the second movement only for all 12 treats. And you keep doing this until you get to the point where it's 1 second. That's not quite 15 seconds, but where it would take 15 seconds. Get to this point within 1 week. Dogs get bored with this exercise, so you really have to rep it a lot. So I'd like each person in the house to do it with each dog once a day. By the end of the week, you should be easily at 15 seconds. So this way, if one of the dogs is staring at the other dog, you're going to say, focus. You take the dog's attention away immediately. But you have to condition that response by practicing it. All right, and then Taylor's going to show you next time she comes by. Well, is she here with you? Is she here without you guys being here?
When we're out of town.
Okay. Well, then basically I'll show the guardians how to let the dogs out. But basically, I open the door and I stand there blocking the exit, and I wait for the dog to sit. When it sits, then I take a step back and invite the dog to come out. If I open the door and let it sprint and run out, again, it's running out without any self-control, and it's overexcited. When you guys come home, I'm sure both the dogs are in there. They're all whining, really excited. Don't even go over there until they've settled down and they have this energy. And as soon as you start walking towards them, they're going to get all wimpy. Whining, turn around and walk away. Don't correct them. Don't say no. Again, like I talked about at the very beginning of this video, when you do the things that I like, I'm very interested in petting you and engaging with you. Down. Passive training. As soon as you do things I don't want, it causes me to move away. And if you're consistent with that and do it right away, 1 second preferably, but no later than 3 seconds, after a while the dogs are realizing this behavior is actually the antithesis of what I want. So I'm going to start being quiet, and that seems to attract the humans. And when I sit, they let me out the door. Well, after a while, you open the door and they'll sit down right away. Then I wait for them to LAY. It's even more calm. And when they lay down, then as soon as they sit, I call them out. Or as soon as they lay down, I call them out, whichever stage I'm at. And after a while, what will happen is you can go open both doors and walk away, and the dog, and I usually say come or whatever my command is, so I'm telling the dog when to come out. Now, to get to that point, once they start laying down, when they lay down, I take 1 step backwards. When I do, they'll get up and try to come out. You rush towards the door as you're ready to say no. And then you wait for them to lay down again. When they do, you take a step back. And they're going to get up, and you're going to have to do this a couple times. So the first time you do this, make sure that you have, when you get to the stage, that you've gone to the bathroom first, somebody's here to get you a drink of water, because you have to outlast your dog. But eventually the dog, you can get a step away, and the dog stays in there with the door wide open. And then you say come. And then when the dog comes out, you give it a treat and say come, or just pet it and say come. After a while, you get 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps. When I finally, at the end of this with one of my dogs, I could actually put the dog, I put the dog in the kennel, went and did a session like I am now, came back home, opened the door, would go change clothes, take a shower, door's wide open, dog stays in there. Make dinner, eat dinner, and then say release, and that was her release word, and she would run out. And I would give each dog a unique release word. So maybe her word is freedom and her word is parole. Whatever the word is, I like funny words. And so this way, if I say parole, she comes out and she doesn't. So that's another way to develop self-control. The door is wide open, but I can only come out when my human gives me permission to come out. For her, Harper has some dog aggression issues. If it's something you want to work on, we do something called BAT training. I'm actually funny because I'm talking to the camera, but the guardian's actually right here. But we do something called BAT, or behavior adjustment training. So if the guardian wants to fix that, let us know, and we can go ahead and set up a session where we bring one of my dogs and probably Francis or another, Taylor. Sorry, my name is Francis too. Basically, we bring a handler out and we teach your dog how to offer a calm behavior like this around other dogs. It takes a little bit of practice, but it's a pretty cool technique. All right, well, I'm laughing because the guardian's probably amazed that her dogs are both laying on the floor here right next to each other. She's behind the camera nodding. This is Harper. This is Holly. Yes, you're Holly. And this is the roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it. Sit. So you saw what happened right there. I know I just summed it up, but she sat. I immediately started petting her. She jumped on me. I immediately stopped petting her. That's a wonderful illustration of what the family needs to be doing. All right. Peace out.